This video is brought to you by Atlas VPN. We're gonna have a nice discussion today, so let me put my armor on just because. Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and I would like to begin by saying that I made a mistake and I'm here to publicly admit it. This is in fact a public apology to you. In my previous video, which was a review of the movie The Northman, as I was describing a battle scene, I was describing the weapons that the protagonist was wielding, one being an axe and one being a bladed implement. In my video I called that a sword, but a lot of you in the comments pointed out that I was mistaken. That is not a sword, that's a sax. And a sax is a knife, so you shouldn't call that a sword. I'm not here to try and defend myself by saying things such as, it's you that misunderstood me. I think I can say that I'm a man who owes his mistakes. I made a mistake, I misspoke, and I apologize profusely. With that being said though, I think that my mistake could be a great opportunity to begin a discussion within not only the community of the sword, but perhaps even the HEMA community. What is a sword? And what is a knife? In other words, when does a long knife end and a short sword begin? Because as I was reading all of these comments, and again, I appreciate constructive criticism, I don't appreciate people saying something like this. Gentlemen, I have no problems saying that I made a mistake and to apologize publicly about it. But I have never, in over 900 videos, ever said that I was a weapon expert. This man is a weapon expert, this man is a weapon expert, and this man is an armor expert. I have never said that I was a weapon expert. But regardless of that, the point being, the sax is a knife. Now, the weapon wielded by the protagonist of the movie is not really the shorter version of the sax. If it was, I would have called it a knife, to be honest. The one with a little broken back, you know, like this. It's still a big knife, but it's a knife. But the one he's wielding is really sword length. Still, by what we can read in the comments, people, regardless of the length of this weapon, say it still is a knife because it's a sax, and that's what a sax is. So my question is, what are the parameters for people to categorize and decide that's a knife, but that one is a sword? The first thing that comes to mind is length. They're both bladed weapons, but the knife is shorter and the sword is longer. If that were the criteria and we were to try and apply that, then a Pompeii gladius, which is on the shorter end, some historical extant examples reaching about 60 centimeters in length, would be shorter than the long sax that the protagonist is wielding. Also because some long sax go up to 70 centimeters of length. The gladius is a sword and the sax is a knife, but the gladius is shorter and the sax is longer. So if length was the only distinguishing factor as the basis of a criteria for differentiation that we were to use, then the gladius is the knife and the sax is the sword. Clearly that's not the case, because everyone in his right mind would call a gladius a sword and a sax, as you can see, is defined as a knife, so length is not the defining factor. People of course can tell me, come on Metatron, obviously the gladius is not a knife, it's double-edged. The sax is single-edged, therefore the gladius is a sword and the sax is a knife, regardless of which one is longer. So in other words, single-edged knife, double-edged sword. Well, if that were the case, then the falchion will be a knife, because the falchion is single-edged, and since we are not using length anymore, because we have just demonstrated that a long sax can still be a knife even though it's longer than the gladius, which we do consider to be a sword, then the falchion is a knife, but the falchion is not a knife. People again can argue and say, well, yeah, but the falchion has a crossguard. The sax doesn't have a crossguard, so the crossguard is the defining factor that turns the falchion into a sword. If that were the case, then the katana is a knife. And please don't mention the tsuba, because that doesn't count. It's a little disc, and even if you remove it, which you do, in some katana, they still call it a katana, and they still call it a sword. Everyone calls a katana sword, whether it has a tsuba or not. The katana is single-edged, it can have zero crossguard, therefore, if we were to apply these criteria, the katana is a knife. With this example, we see that single-edged versus double-edged is not enough to differentiate a knife from a sword, neither is the presence or absence of the crossguard. Of course, you could say, yeah, okay, but the nodachi or the katana are just too long. But that's not the case, because even if you go down to a wakizashi, you're still calling it a sword. Everyone calls a wakizashi a short sword, and some wakizashi, historically, are gonna be shorter than sax. Sax in Old English, so in Anglo-Saxon, means knife. Therefore, it is a knife. If that were the criteria to be used, as some people again suggested in the comments, then we run into another problem. the messer. I think no one in his right mind will tell you that a massive two-handed Großmesser is a knife, and yet Messer in German means knife. So when it comes to the very small one, I don't think we would have too much of a problem to say, yeah, that's a big knife, but a Langmesser? I don't think that anyone would call the Kriegsmesser, the war version, a knife. It's a sword. I mean, can you imagine someone at the table asking, can you pass me the knife please? And then the other person gives him a two-handed Großmesser, 1.5 meters long. So to me, what we are doing here is that we are applying two different criteria. With the sax, regardless of how long it gets, because sax means knife, we still call them all knives, and if you call it a sword, you are wrong. But with the messer instead, we are doing basically what I did with the sax on that video. If it's very short, I'll call it a knife, but if it gets too long, I'll call it a sword, and that's what people do. I honestly doubt that they would call a Großmesser a knife, and therefore they are not applying the same strictness as they are with the sax. So what would be the solution to all of this? Well, I do have an idea, and I will share it with you after a word from our kind sponsor. But now I'd like to take a moment to mention the sponsor that made this video possible, Atlas VPN. But what is a VPN? A VPN is a virtual private network that makes all of your internet traffic travel through an encrypted tunnel, and this way it protects you from spying, public Wi-Fi dangers, it hides your IP address, and online activities. Atlas VPN is a great choice because it was developed by cyber security specialists and, among other things, it gives you access to the Data Breach Monitor, which is a security feature designed to track any data breaches related to your online accounts, automatically scanning any leaked information. But another add-on through Atlas VPN is the fact that you can use Netflix from any country regardless of where you are. So let's say you wanted to watch a show that they only broadcast in the UK, but you were in America, no problem, just change your country through the VPN and boom, access granted. I personally always have Atlas VPN active on my machines because one account lets you use unlimited devices. Not only Atlas VPN is a great choice, but it's also a very affordable one. Right now, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount. For only $1.99 a month, you can get a 3-year subscription, 30 days money-back guarantee. Only $1.99 a month, so what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and enjoy your safety. Hey, welcome back. Now please don't take this the wrong way, I'm just saying this for fun. Let's enjoy talking about something nerdy, fun. So I think what I'm bringing up with this video is that all of these different criteria that we seem to be applying to some swords, we are not applying to all swords. So what could be a good way to distinguish a sword from a knife? In other words, if you take a katana and you keep cutting and removing metal, what is the specific point where it stops being a sword and it starts being a knife? A single-edged blade stops being a knife and starts being a sword depending on its length comparatively to the wielder. If you take a longsword and you give it to a human, it's a longsword. If you give it to a hobbit, to Frodo, it's a greatsword. If you give it to a giant, it's a dagger. The same way, if you take a regular sax, it's a big knife in the hands of a human, it's a short sword in the hands of a hobbit, and it's a tiny little knife in the hands of a giant. If you take a long sax, depending on how long it is, it could be a very long knife in the hands of a human, or maybe even a short sword in the hands of a human, also depending on the human in fact. If you give it to a hobbit, it becomes a big sword, much like a falchion for a human, and if you give it to a giant, it's a knife. And if you want to do this with Japanese swords, a katana in the hands of a human is a sword, you give it to a hobbit is a nodachi, but if you give it to a giant it's a wakizashi. Now I do understand I'm generalizing a lot when it comes particularly to Japanese weapons, because I do understand that there are some differences in curvature. It's not just about the length, it also has to do with the constructions and how many pins, but I do believe that whether a weapon is a short sword or is a knife is arbitrary, and it depends on who is using it. At least this criteria would be more consistent than the one that we usually use and that we have in place today, as I have proven, I believe, in the first part of the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd like to now talk about reverse grip. You see, the ice grip or reverse grip is also the part that I talked about on that video, and I hated the fact that he was using a sword with a reverse grip, and people said no, because technically it's a knife and it's absolutely fine to use a knife in the reverse grip, so there was nothing wrong with it. I disagree, so I am gonna defend that one. I unfortunately don't have a sword with me because I couldn't send them from Italy to America. I will have to buy a new one, maybe an Albion. But for now, please entertain me with this mace. So I'm holding it the regular way, okay? If this were to be a knife, people say that if you use it in the reverse grip, okay, it's good because you can, have better penetration. I can agree with that. I'm not saying that the reverse grip or the ice pick grip is wrong per se, but I'm saying that the longer the blade, the less reasonable it is to use something in the reverse grip. I would really love to hear Matt Easton's opinion or David Rowland's opinion on this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to learn from you. When it comes to slashing, I think it's just more awkward. It looks cool, it looks flashy. I'm not saying that experts won't be able to pull it off, but you do lose reach. And in a way, even the piercing, even though you can get more penetration and more strength, when you stab like this, you can stab basically in any direction, but when you need to stab like this, there is only, anatomically speaking, good luck going past this angle to stab effectively. I'm sure the weapons experts will tell me, yeah, but there are still some pros to that specific technique. But if it's a long blade, what's the reason for this? Well, some people in the comments said I could use it as a shield. So if I'm wielding an axe with my dominant hand, I can wield this one, the reverse grip, so I can block with it while I attack. Well, here's the thing. He doesn't do it in the fight scene. So he is swinging with this while he's holding this one in the back. Like that. Like Naruto. And the only time that he blocks with both. If he really needed to do that, couldn't he do this? My complaint wasn't in general against the reverse grip. In fact, I did say that if you're using a rondella, for example, and you need to subdue a knight, I would absolutely advise to do this. But if you're dual wielding with a long axe and an axe, I just don't see it. Again, I'm not a sword expert, so I'm going to leave that to the experts. Hopefully we will see a nice response video to this. But still, I was reviewing that fight scene specifically. He did not do that. He was keeping this one in the back while he was swinging. He was not using it that way. It was just to make it look cool. The only thing he did at one point is that he puts it in front of the throat of someone. The guy just doesn't do anything and he slits his throat. I believe that the reverse grip is being pushed in all sorts of combat situations, whether it be Japanese samurai using it, Japanese ninja using it, now as you can see the Vikings, medieval people, the Witcher using a sword that way. Similar situation we see with flourishes with a sword. We think they're cool because they got spread into television and people started doing it with Japanese swords, but I can assure you that no Katori Shintoryu master, no Kendo sensei ever does that in combat. But people started applying it because it looks good, it looks flashy, and then from being applied from Chinese martial arts, using it as a spectacle. I doubt that Kung Fu of the medieval period used it on the battlefield. It's more of a show. And then that was copy-pasted in the media into Japanese martial arts, because now everyone wants to do it with the katana because it looks cool. Before anyone points it out, I do know about the circular movement of great swords and the way you're supposed to wield and operate a great sword when you are surrounded. That's an exception. I believe we perceive this to be cool because of the media. But if you showed someone who is very talented in doing all of these reverse grips and flourishes and flashy moves, and you showed it to an ancient Roman or to a medieval fighter, a knight, a professional man-at-arms, or a Norse warrior, if you were to build a time machine, that is, they would look at that and think, wow, that is amazing, this guy is exceptional, what a great athlete, what a great acrobat. They would not say what a great warrior. And if you said, no, that's a swordsman, they'd be like, that's not what swordsmen do. No, he's an entertainer, isn't he? Anyways, I hope that this could be an interesting opportunity to have some discussion, constructive criticism, and I'm always ready to be corrected and to learn from you. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. Please don't forget to check out the link in the description to take advantage of the amazing offer made by Atlas VPN. Thank you very much for watching, noble ones. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.